All right, Ted, drink.
Ugh, why did I ever choose to play chess with shots?
Something about you've been practicing and you're not going to have to drink anything anyway? All right. And that would be checkmate. Cheers, Ted. Well, once Ted comes through, we're going to do a D&D character build, the Drunken Tactician for Adventurers League. Welcome to Nerdarchy. For nerds, by nerds, I'm Nerdarchy Dave, and as usual, I'm hanging out with this nerd.
Nerdarchy Ted.
Hey, maybe it's your first time visiting Ted's Basement. It's a place where we like to discuss news, views, and homebrews for 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons. Sometimes we even talk about other role-playing games.
So if you don't want to miss a single video, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and attune to that notification bell.
All right, so we're going to do another character build, and you kind of came up with this idea and threw it out there. You wanted to do the Drunken Tactician?
Yeah, I thought it was a pretty interesting idea. Sometimes I like how certain subclasses fit together. Sometimes I come up with, just a pure concept and we see what fits into that. But this time was more of the former. I had an idea of 2 subclasses that I thought would be really fun to put into one character.
So you're mechanically inspired on this one. And you're like, hey, one's a drunk and one's a tactician. I know, we'll make a Drunken Tactician.
Indeed.
So in that case, we kind of already know where we're going to end up going for the character classes that we're going to be combining. From now, it's just a matter of figuring out the background and the races that we're going to use. We're going to make it Adventurers League legal, so that's going to be a factor as well.
And that does, limit some of our choices. As we begin putting together, our race concepts, there's some stuff that I'm like, oh, I would really like that. And there's stuff that I would do, but we're going to have to avoid those because that makes it not AL legal.
That's true. Now, before we go any further, let's point out a couple things. One, there's a D&D Beyond character sheet in the description that you can take a look at and see what we ended up with. 2, there's a character build guide for the Drunken Tactician that you can go download, pay what you want. You can pay nothing, pay $1 million. It's all up to you. It's what you want. And also, this video is sponsored by D&D Beyond.
D&D Beyond.
Our favorite database for all things Dungeons & Dragons. It's also a great place to make your characters, build your encounters, make homebrew stuff. Not only that, they got a bunch of free stuff over there as well, Ted.
Yeah, you can check out the videos, you can check out the articles, you can check out any of the SRD content, and as we've recently, found out and started using, the Unearthed Arcana is over there as well.
All right, so let's jump into it. We talked about there's a handful of races that would work really well for this combination, but actually, what is the combination? What are the 2 subclasses?
All right, so we are looking, Drunken Master, Tactician, Battle Master under Fighter. So we're looking at a Monk Fighter build. You don't really have a whole lot of stat requirements to make this one work out. So we can dive in. We know that Monk needs our dex and our wisdom. So that gives us a handful of races that go in that direction.
With combining these 2 classes, there's one thing to remember. With the Battle Master, you just have to always look at your maneuvers when you want to combine them and see what they say. What are the requirements? Some of them will say weapon attack. Some of them will say melee weapon attack. People always say we get things wrong because we're using the melee weapon attack to do certain things. That does not actually mean a weapon. A claw, a bite, an unarmed strike. They are all melee weapon attacks. A weapon attack is very different and very specific. That means you're actually using a weapon like a sword or a dagger or a club.
And in those cases, a fist or a claw, a natural attack does not count as a weapon attack.
Yeah, they do not qualify. All right, so I guess we're going to start with the races. What races were we looking at?
So obviously your Wood Elf, your Ghostwise Halfling, your Kenku, your Wild Hunt Shifter, your Aarakocra, and your Human and variant or non all work out well to do this kind of build.
Absolutely. But where they don't work out, they are not all going to be AL legal, because if we're using the Drunken Master, we know we have to go to Xanathar's Guide to Everything. We know we have to use the PHB. There are no races in Xanathar's Guide to Everything.
And that's, that's where, my conflict comes in, because I would love this character to be a Kenku. And it would, be funny is if they're drunk, does that mean, when they use someone else's voice, does it become slurred? Or do they have to copy someone else's slurred speech in order to sound drunk?
It's a question we will never know the answer to now, Ted.
With those options, there's only two choices that are in the PHB that we like and that we can work with, and that's going to be our Wood Elf and our Human.
Both of them are great choices. We've done the Wood Elf several times, I believe, so we didn't want to go back there. So we went with Variant Human. That gives us our 2 floating +1s. We're going to take a feat. We're going to take a skill. For our feat, we're going to take Resilient, and we're going to take Wisdom. So now we can get a +2 to Wisdom, and we can get a +1 to Dexterity. Those are going to be the most important stats to this build.
So that will get us to start as a Human with 2 16s, and we get an extra saving throw out of it. Not too bad. So for our language that we chose from going variant, we took Dwarvish. This character, we see, being around, more dwarves than anything else. We also saw this character as being somewhat studious, so we took the proficiency in history.
Next up, we have backgrounds, and we have several different ones we're looking at. I think we were looking at Hermit, we were looking at Soldier.
Hermit offers a number of advantages, but for where we see this character going, Soldier really seemed to strike true with it. And that's also why we chose, Dwarvish. Perhaps it's a link to a monastery, perhaps it's a link to the drinking that's going to happen, but soldiering is definitely fitting more with, humans and dwarves than it would with, any of the other races.
Well, I'm going to say it was a link to both, because we discussed this a little bit when we were talking about doing this build. And the idea was he was a soldier and he saw too much violence, too much bloodshed, and he retreats to a monastery to kind of get over it, to heal those scars on his soul. And it happens to be a dwarven monastery with dwarven monks. They're not drunken masters. They're just dwarves and they drink a lot. So this guy inadvertently becomes a drunken master while he's trying to recover from the horrors of war.
So we got Soldier. We got our first class, and that's going to be Fighter.
So even before Fighter, though, from that Soldier background, we're going to get Intimidation, we're going to get Athletics, we're also going to get Land Vehicles, and we're going to get a gaming set. We might as well go with chess. This guy's a tactician, who was a military person. He knows tactics and strategy. It makes sense. And we also think it's funny that our medieval fantasy character can now get DWIs with his vehicles land.
Just, something fun to add in there. So when we go to Fighter, we are going to get 2 more skills. And since we know that we're going in the direction of Monk and that we're going to have a pretty decent wisdom score, we power gamed a little bit, and we were going to take Insight and Perception as our fighter skills. This is going to work out well for us. But from a storyline perspective, this character, perhaps they have more of an officer, in training type scenario. So knowing what the men are thinking and being observant as to what's going on kind of fits with where we're seeing this character.
Yeah, also being able to insight their foes and their enemies on the battlefield, observing, taking in the information. All of that absolutely makes sense as well. Also, from Fighter, we're going to get our fighting style. We're going to pick up Dueling. It's the only one that's going to make sense, and it's the only one I think we're going to even be able to take advantage of at all. And then from Fighter, we're going to go into Monk, and we're going to go there for 3 levels, because we want to go right up and get our monastic tradition and our subclass, which is going to be Drunken Master. But before that, we also get some other cool stuff.
So Fighter, we're going to get the Second Wind. From Monk, we're going to get our Key. We're going to get our Martial Arts. We're going to get Unarmored Defense. We're also going to get Unarmored Movement, and we're going to get the ability to deflect missiles.
Don't forget those all-important brewer supplies, because maybe he's going to be in a town that they don't make good beer or good liquor, but he'll be able to make his own.
It takes some time. But, absolutely, being able to brew his own ale, his own beer, totally a thing now.
And, you know, we're also going to gain the Tipsy Sway ability from Drunken Master, which is awesome. Anytime you use a flurry of blows, you can disengage basically for free. And also, you gain 10 foot of movement, so making this character very mobile.
All right, so from here, we've managed to stave off, a bit of, the horrible things that happened in the war.
Or drink them away.
Or drink them away, as the case may be. But, we're now getting into, the combination of mixing our fighter with our, monkness, our martial arts. So we're actually going to dip back into fighter for another 2 levels. This is going to give us that much needed action surge because it's one of the best abilities in the game, as well as we're going to be able to get our next subclass, that being, Battle Master, and that's going to give us our first 3 maneuvers.
So with those maneuvers, we took Trip, we took Disarming, and we took Riposte. All very useful. And not let us not forget, now we also are proficient in Woodcarver's tools as well. So we can whittle. Hopefully we don't lose any of our fingers because we've been drinking.
So we discussed this one, offline for a little while. And we thought it was, the most comical of like, yeah, let's pull out sharp objects and cut on wood while we're drunk. This is going to end in hilarity. So yeah, let's do it.
And as far as our maneuvers, instead of thinking tactically, I was thinking more along the lines of what would be funny things that you could do in combat as a drunken master. And also, what would Jackie Chan do?
What would Jackie Chan do? So we kind of looked for things that, might appear as, comical or accidental while he's fighting. And to me, that's the more enjoyable aspect of the Drunken Master is, you could play this kind of character as it's not at all about proficiency. It is pure luck based that these things happen. And to me, that just sends the hilarity through the roof. I didn't mean to do that, but his weapon's now over there. All right, so from here, we're going to take two more levels of Monk. This is going to give us access to our first ASI. We're going to put that in Dex, bumping that up to an 18. We're going to get Slow Fall, and we're finally going to get our extra attack.
Not only that, we also get Stunning Strike, one of the best abilities for the monks, super useful.
All right, so from here, we're going to then go into 3 more levels of Fighter. This is going to provide us, number 1, with not 1, but 2 ASIs. We're also going to get, extra attack, but since we already have it, it's kind of a dead level, meaningless for us. But we're going to take that +2 to Dex, maxing that out for us, yay 20, and then we're going to take our Wisdom up to an 18.
Then we're going to get 3 levels of Monk. We're going to get a bunch of cool abilities. I misspoke earlier and said Tipsy Sway. This is when we actually get Tipsy Sway, which lets us do those cool things. But we're also going to get another ASI, and that's going to give us another +2 to Wisdom, maxing that out. So now we have 20 and 20. Now we have a minimum of a 20 armor class, buck ass naked.
All right, so in those levels of Monk, we're going to get, a number of other things. We're going to get, Stillness of Mind. We're going to get the super awesome Evasion. We're also going to get Ki Empowered Strike, or Ki Empowered Strike. So, now while we're punching things, we've got the ability to, be enchanted and hit those things that, desperately need that.
Then, for our next 2 levels, we're going back to Fighter. We're going to get Know Your Enemy, and we're also going to get another ASI. Or feat if we choose. Not only did we get those extra maneuvers, which we took Goading Attack and Pushing Attack, for the ASI, we did end up taking the feat.
So we're going to take Martial Adept here. And what we wound up going beyond getting that extra die, we're going to get Lunging Attack and Distracting Attack.
And we're going to finish off with 4 levels of Monk, taking us to the end. There's a couple cool abilities like Purity to Body, but from Drunken Master, we're going to also get Drunkard's Luck, which basically you have disadvantage, spend some key points, and now you don't.
For our last feat, we get the 12th level Monk. We do get our final ASI, and we debated, do we take a stat or do we take a feat? And initially we're like, oh, let's get, a +2 to Con. It's going to give us, 20 hit points. It's going to give us a +1 to a saving throw. But, that +1 a saving throw is not as that big a deal, for this character. So like, well, if we're really looking at this for hit points, why not just take tough and get 40 hit points instead of 20? So this character, has drunk so much that they just don't really care about being hit anymore.
So with that, this is the point of the video where we kind of flip from the player side of things to the Dungeon Master side of things. And we're going to discuss what this NPC might be like to use against your players, or, as basically a social encounter, or maybe even exploration.
There are a number of movies where you've had a drunken master who is encountered, just off to the side, they're drinking. I would do that kind of thing with this character. Set it up so that they are a staple in town. Everybody knows the town drunk, and nobody knows his story. They wandered into town several years ago, and, somehow they wind up with money and they buy alcohol. Maybe they're just, they don't ever buy it. They're making their own. Who knows where they're getting it, but they're drinking and they're lazy and whatever have you. That's the story. But what they don't know is, that this character is actually someone of import from long ago. They've seen horrific things. They've possibly even done horrific things. Who knows? But the players have to encounter this character and get information out of them. And maybe, you take a combat in a different way. And he's like, you want information out of me. You gotta best me. And he forces them to fight and bring him down.
Or maybe a drinking competition. Maybe both.
Maybe both. Maybe they have to drink and fight with disadvantage while drunk against him who's not suffering disadvantage.
Because he's used to being drunk. Yeah, that's definitely a way to go. The other idea is he is the drunk, like you said. Maybe he's belligerent, obnoxious, and the players pick a fight with him. And, he's a much higher level NPC than they are. And he bests them easily. He humiliates them. He's doing basically subdual damage. He's not actually harming them, but he's doing funny things like disarming them, making their pants fall down, just embarrassing stuff. And, a lot of the things that he does looks almost coincidental in nature. Or another idea is he is the hermit going around town, and he has a battered sword that's in a scabbard that he uses for a cane more than anything. And maybe the players encounter like local bullies or thugs trying to take it from him. And you can, depending on how the players react, if they intercede on his behalf, maybe they befriend him, or they can witness him, the scene where he basically easily bests these thugs in a drunken stupor and then wanders off. And maybe they even encounter him later and they ask him about it and he doesn't even remember because it was during one of his drunken blackouts. It's comical no matter how you do it. But this character could easily be just as easily a social. It could just be an exploration where you witness this character doing something, or, push comes to shove, it can easily be a combat that's thrown in there, and one that, you might not have expected to use. There was a pretty good drunken monk scene in the Iron Fist series on Netflix as well. Would be a great place to look for inspiration. This doesn't have to be comedy relief or adult. It could be a more serious encounter as well. And, I do like almost using it like the exploration phase where you're like more like hazards that you have to overcome, but they have to do with drinking games, or maybe that's considered more social, but it's not a combat and it's not like your traditional social encounter.
That's true. And, from the serious side, if you wanted to use this, as exploration or an expose, like, he could get into, and like he's gone, mentally he's not even there, but verbally he's speaking and engaging with the players, and he's talking about, the horrors of his past and the things that he's seen, and, they get into why he's drinking. It could be a very, heart-touching, encounter as the players hear about some of the, some past that they need to find, and he's the only one that has that information.
Question is, would you use it in your game? Would you play it? We got a place where we can discuss it down in the comments. Before we head on out, let me take a moment to invite you to join Nerdarchy, the adventuring party over on Patreon. What do you expect over there, Ted?
We're creating products for 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons that both players and DMs alike can drop right into their game.
That's not all. Every month we have monthly giveaways, and our patrons are entered automatically.
We also do weekly hangouts with our patrons and more.
So quest on down to the description, join the Nerdarchy adventuring party, and until next time,
Stay nerdy.